You know what happens 3 months into WW3 when the draft notices arrive and grocery stores start rationing by citizenship? Everyone who spent $5,000 on survival supplies realizes they bought a 6-month countdown to starvation. The MREs run out. The water purification tablets are gone. The first aid supplies are used up. And then they're just people with empty containers and no skills, surrounded by others just as helpless. What do you think happens next? Here's the thing about supplies. They make you a target while they last and useless when they're gone. But skills? Skills are invisible. Skills are infinite. Skills make you valuable instead of vulnerable. 7 skills exist right now that cost almost nothing to learn. You can acquire them this month for under $100 total. In World War III, when supply chains collapse and stockpiles deplete, these skills become survival currency. While they're fighting over cans, you'll be producing what cans can't provide. Rule 0. Understand the depletion curve. Before we map the 7 skills, you need to understand why they create strategic advantage over supplies in the first place. The math is stupid simple, but 99% of preppers never run the numbers. Let me show you. Picture 2 people preparing for World War III. Person A spends $10,000 on supplies, freeze-dried food, water filtration systems, medical kits, ammunition, fuel stabilizer, batteries, a garage full of survival insurance. Person B spends $500 learning 7 basic skills: wound closure, manual calculation, bicycle repair, fermentation, water treatment, radio operation, navigation. Here's the timeline for Person A. Those MREs last 25 years in the sealed package. The second you open one, you've got 6 months before degradation starts. Every meal consumed is 1 meal closer to 0. The water filters have a rated capacity, maybe 100,000 gallons. Process enough contaminated water and the filter clogs. The batteries leak. The fuel goes bad, even with stabilizer. The medical supplies get used up treating injuries. Everything in that garage is on a countdown timer to uselessness. Here's the timeline for Person B. Learn to suture a wound once. Use that knowledge infinitely. The skill improves with practice. It doesn't degrade. It doesn't run out. Learn to ferment food once. Produce preserved calories forever. Learn to purify water once. Make any water source safe. Skills are renewable. Every application reinforces the knowledge. That's the depletion curve. Supplies make you a consumer until they run out. Skills make you a producer forever. Person A becomes a target, visible wealth, finite resource, defensive posture. Person B becomes valuable, nothing to steal, everything to offer, strategic position. 99% focus on having, 1% focus on doing. The first skill separates survivalists from corpses. It costs $30 to learn. 99% of preppers ignore it because it's not tactical looking enough. That's their mistake. Skill 1. Wound closure without hospitals. It's month 2 of WW3. You're moving supplies at night and you slip. A piece of shrapnel from a bombed-out building opens a 4-inch gash across your forearm. Not deep enough to hit an artery, but deep enough that you're bleeding steadily and the wound edges are gaping. In peacetime, this is a quick trip to urgent care for 8 stitches and a tetanus shot. In WW3, the hospitals are overwhelmed with combat casualties, grid failures, mass casualty events. Or they're just gone. What do? Here's what 99% of preppers do. They press gauze on it. They wrap it tight with bandages. They pour antiseptic and hope. And then they watch over the next 5 days as the wound edges don't close, as bacteria colonize the open tissue, as the infection spreads. They have antibiotics in their stockpile, but antibiotics don't close wounds. They treat infection after it starts. By day 7, they're looking at cellulitis spreading up their arm. By day 10, without IV antibiotics and surgical debridement, they're looking at sepsis. That's how you die from a survivable cut. Here's what the 1% do. They irrigate the wound with clean water. They approximate the tissue edges. They place interrupted sutures at 4 to 6 millimeter intervals. They tie square knots or surgeon's knots. They apply sterile dressing. the wound closes. The edges stay together. Healing happens by primary intention instead of secondary intention. Infection risk drops by 80%. They're back to operational status in a week. The skill costs $30 to learn. A suture practice kit with a silicone pad, curved needles, suture thread, and needle drivers. You can buy it on Amazon right now. The learning curve is 4 to 6 hours of practice. You're not becoming a surgeon. You're learning basic interrupted sutures for linear lacerations. That's it. Thread the needle, insert at 90 degrees to the skin surface, pass through both edges of the wound, tie it off. Repeat every 4 to 6 millimeters until the wound is closed. What you're actually learning is tissue approximation, sterile technique, and infection prevention. The physics is simple. Wounds heal when edges are close together and protected from contamination. Sutures hold edges together. Closure prevents bacteria from accessing deep tissue. Your body does the rest. The strategic multiplier is obvious. You can save your own life when you get injured. You can save your group members' lives when they get injured. In a collapsed medical system, the person who can close wounds becomes the medic. That's a position of value. People need you more than you need their stockpiles of bandages. 99% are stockpiling gauze pads and hoping wounds stay small. 1% are learning to close wounds and eliminating hope from the equation. That's the difference between survival theater and survival capability. Knowing how to close wounds keeps you alive. But survival isn't just physical. It's cognitive. The next two skills separate humans from calculators, and in World War III, your brain is your most powerful tool. Skills 2 and 3. The cognitive edge. It's month 4 of World War III. The power grid is down. Rolling blackouts turned into permanent darkness 3 weeks ago. Your smartphone is a brick. No GPS, no calculator, no engineering apps, no measurement tools. You're standing in front of a damaged bridge trying to figure out if the remaining support beam can hold the weight of your vehicle. Can you calculate load-bearing capacity without an app? Can you estimate the stress on that beam? Can you do the math in your head or on paper? Here's what 99% of people do. They guess, they hope. They drive across and pray the structure holds. Some of them make it. Some of them don't. The ones who don't make it weren't killed by WW3. They were killed by mathematical illiteracy. The 1% pull out a pencil and paper. They measure the beam dimensions. They calculate cross-sectional area. They estimate material strength. They apply basic physics. Load equals force divided by area. Stress equals load times distance from neutral axis. They run the numbers, and they know whether that bridge is safe or suicide. That's not luck. That's applied mathematics. Skill 2 is manual calculation. Arithmetic, geometry, basic trigonometry. The math you learned in school and forgot the second calculators became standard. What fails in WW3 is every digital crutch you've been leaning on for decades. GPS for navigation calculations, calculator apps for basic arithmetic, engineering software for load analysis, measurement apps for distance and angle. When those tools die, most people are mathematically helpless. What you need to relearn is simple. Mental math for basic operations, pencil and paper for complex calculations, estimation for quick approximations. The cost is $0 if you use free Khan Academy courses to rebuild competency, or $15 for a slide rule and a printed math reference manual. The learning curve is 10 to 15 hours to regain pre-calculator competence. You're not becoming a mathematician. You're becoming functional without digital assistance. The strategic applications are endless. Ration division across group members, distance calculation for navigation, angle measurement for construction, load calculations for structural safety, fuel consumption estimation for trip planning, medication dosing based on body weight. Every survival scenario involves numbers. The person who can run those numbers reliably has a massive advantage over the person who's guessing. Skill 3 builds on this foundation. Basic engineering principles. This is understanding physics without computers. Leverage, force, materials behavior, heat transfer. The cost is $20 for a basic engineering manual in print format. not digital. The learning curve is 20 to 30 hours of study plus hands-on practice with real objects. What you're learning is how systems work at a fundamental level. Pulley systems create mechanical advantage. A 5-to-1 pulley ratio means you can lift 500 pounds with 100 pounds of force. Beam deflection follows predictable patterns based on load, length, and material. A wooden beam will sag in the middle before it breaks. Thermal expansion is calculable. Metal expands when heated at predictable rates per degree. The applications are immediate. You can build shelters that don't collapse under snow load. You can create lifting systems using rope and pulleys. You can understand why a structure failed and how to prevent the next failure. You can design, not just assemble. You can engineer solutions from available materials instead of hoping pre-made solutions exist. While everyone else is standing around with dead phones staring at problems they can't solve, you're calculating solutions. While they're guessing and failing, you're measuring and succeeding. That's the difference between a functional brain and an expensive paperweight in your pocket. Your brain can calculate. Now your hands need to build. The next skill turns scrap into infrastructure and makes you irreplaceable. Skill 4. Mechanical repair without spare parts. It's month 6 of WW3. Gasoline is rationed to military and emergency services only. Civilian vehicles are stationary monuments to a dead logistics system. No fuel deliveries, no parts shipments, no repair shops operating. The people who planned for this bought bicycles. They're the smart ones, right? They have human-powered transportation when everyone else is walking. Here's the problem. Bicycles break, spokes snap, brake pads wear down, chains stretch, bearings seize, tires puncture. In peacetime, you ride to a bike shop and pay someone to fix it. In World War III, that bike shop doesn't exist. The parts aren't being manufactured. The replacement components aren't available. When your bicycle breaks, 99% of people do the same thing they did with their cars. They abandon it and walk. The 1% keep riding because they learned something that cost $40 and took a weekend to practice. Basic bicycle maintenance and repair. What you're learning is simple. Wheel truing, which is adjusting spoke tension so the wheel spins straight without wobbling. Brake adjustment, setting pad clearance and cable tension. Chain maintenance, cleaning, lubrication, and wear assessment. Bearing service, disassembly, cleaning, repacking with grease, tire repair, patching tubes, and dealing with punctures. The toolkit costs $40. Spoke wrench, chain tool, Allen key set, tire levers, cable cutters, cone wrenches. You can buy this on Amazon today as a basic bike repair kit. The learning curve is 8 to 12 hours of hands-on practice. The fastest way to learn is volunteer at a bike co-op. They teach you for free in exchange for labor. You spend a few weekends helping others fix bikes while learning the skills yourself. The technical knowledge is straightforward. Spoke tension should be roughly equal across the wheel. You pluck each spoke and listen for consistent tone. Loose spokes create wobbles. Over-tight spokes crack at the nipple. Brake pad clearance should be 1 to 2 millimeters from the rim surface. Closer, and they drag. Further, and braking power drops. Chain wear is measurable. When a chain elongates by 0.5% from its original length, it's time to replace it, or it will wear down your chainring and cassette. Here's what this skill actually gives you. Mobility, when everyone else is stranded. A bicycle in working condition travels 20 times faster than walking. That's reconnaissance capability. That's trade route access. That's escape options. When others are trapped by distance, you're mobile. The repair advantage extends beyond your own bike. You can fix other people's bicycles in exchange for food, information, supplies. The person who can maintain transportation infrastructure becomes valuable to any group. Communities need mechanics more than they need another mouth with supplies to trade. This skill scales to all hand tools. The principles of maintenance apply universally. Keep tools clean. Keep moving parts lubricated. Sharpen cutting edges. Replace worn components before they fail catastrophically. A maintained tool lasts decades. A neglected tool becomes scrap in months. Everything mechanical degrades. That's physics. Material fatigue, corrosion, wear. Knowing how to maintain and repair beats stockpiling replacement parts because eventually those parts run out. Skills don't run out. Every repair teaches you more about mechanical systems. Every fix reinforces the knowledge. While 99% are walking because their bike broke and they don't know how to fix it. You're riding. While they're stranded, you're moving. That's not luck. That's mechanical literacy translating to tactical mobility. You can move. You can build. Now you need to eat and drink without stores or supply drops. The next two skills turn time into food and contamination into clean water. Skills 5 and 6. Resource production without infrastructure. It's month 8 of World War III. Supply convoys aren't running anymore. The stores have been empty for months. Municipal water treatment plants are offline because there's no power to run the pumps and no chemicals to dose the water. You're looking at fresh vegetables from a garden raid that will rot in 3 days without refrigeration. You're looking at a creek that might be contaminated with bacteria, chemicals, or worse. What do? Here's what 99% of people do. They eat the vegetables immediately before they spoil. They drink the creek water and hope their immune system handles whatever's in it. Some of them get lucky. Most of them get sick. Dysentery, cholera, typhoid. In World War III, waterborne disease kills faster than bullets. Skill 5 is lactofermentation, food preservation without refrigeration or canning supplies. What you're learning is using salt and thyme to turn fresh vegetables into preserved food. Sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles. The process is simple. Submerge vegetables in salt brine. Keep them weighted below the liquid surface. Wait 3 to 7 days. The lactobacillus bacteria naturally present on the vegetables, consume sugars, and produce lactic acid. The pH drops to 3.5 to 4.5. That acidic environment prevents spoilage bacteria from growing. The cost is $10 for fermentation weights and airlocks. The learning curve is 3 to 5 hours of instruction plus 1 or 2 practice batches. You're not becoming a master fermenter. You're learning to extend the life of fresh food from 3 days to 3 months. The strategic gain is obvious. You can preserve harvest surplus. You can create probiotics that support gut health and immune function. You can produce trade goods. Fresh vegetables become valuable preserved vegetables that don't require refrigeration or electricity. Skill 6 is basic water treatment. What you're learning is how to make contaminated water safe to drink. The process is sediment removal, chemical disinfection, and weighting. Filter water through cloth to remove visible particles. Add 2 drops of unscented bleach per liter of water. Wait 30 minutes for the chlorine to kill bacteria and viruses. The water is now safe to drink. The cost is $25 for bleach, cloth filters, and water quality test strips. The chemistry is straightforward. Chlorine oxidizes bacterial cell walls and viral proteins. At proper concentration, it sterilizes without being toxic to humans. Here's the critical equation. You die in 3 days without water. Not 3 weeks, not 3 months. 3 days. A functional water treatment skill means any water source becomes a survival resource. Creek water, rainwater, even questionable standing water can be made safe with the right treatment. The person who can produce clean water and preserved food isn't just surviving. They're operating a renewable resource system. While others are consuming their way through finite stockpiles, you're producing new supplies continuously. That's the difference between a countdown timer and sustainable operations. You can preserve food. You can purify water. But in WW3, information and position matter as much as resources. The final skill keeps you connected and oriented when all systems fail. Skill 7. Information and orientation independence. It's month 10 of WW3. The internet is gone. Cell towers are either destroyed or without power. GPS satellites are being jammed or have been destroyed by anti-satellite weapons. You're standing at a crossroads with no phone, no navigation app, no way to know what's happening beyond visual range. Which direction leads to safety? Which route is blocked by hostile forces? What's happening 50 miles north? You have no idea because you're operating blind. Here's the information blackout reality. No internet means no news, no coordination, no intelligence beyond what you can see with your eyes. No cell service means no communication with allies or family. No GPS means navigation by guesswork. 99% of people are isolated, disoriented, and making decisions based on incomplete information. That's how you walk into an ambush or a contaminated zone or a dead end with no escape route. The 1% have two skills that cost $80 combined and provide strategic intelligence advantage. First skill component is basic ham radio operation. What you're learning is how to transmit and receive radio communications over distances up to 50 miles, depending on terrain and antenna setup. The cost is $30 for the technician license study materials and $35 for a Baofeng handheld radio. The learning curve is 15 to 20 hours of study for the license exam. The exam is required in peacetime. In WW3, nobody's enforcing FCC regulations. The range varies. With a handheld radio and basic antenna, you get 5 to 10 miles in urban terrain, 20 to 50 miles in open terrain with elevation advantage. That's coordination capability with allies. That's intelligence gathering from other survivors. That's calling for help when you need it. That's trade information for resources. The strategic value is obvious. While everyone else is isolated and guessing, you're connected. You know what's happening beyond your immediate position. You can coordinate group movements. You can warn allies about threats. You can gather intelligence about safe routes and dangerous areas. Second skill component is map and compass navigation. What you're learning is how to navigate without GPS. Declination adjustment for magnetic variation. Bearing calculation for direction of travel. Terrain association to match map features with ground features. Dead reckoning to track position over distance. The cost is $15 for a quality compass and waterproof topographic maps of your area. The learning curve is 6 to 8 hours of practice in local terrain. You're not becoming a land navigation expert. You're becoming functional without electronic assistance. The technical requirements are straightforward. Declination is the difference between true north and magnetic north. In North America, that's 0 to 20 degrees depending on location. You adjust your compass for local declination. Bearing is the angle between north and your direction of travel measured in degrees. You plot bearings on the map and follow them with the compass. Here's why this matters. GPS fails. Satellites get destroyed or jammed. Devices run out of battery with no way to recharge. Roads get blocked. Signs get removed or destroyed. Without navigation skills, you're lost. Lost means wandering into threats. Lost means wasting time and energy. Lost means missing rally points and safe zones. The combined advantage is strategic intelligence. You know what's happening through radio communication. You know where you are through navigation skills. While others are lost and isolated, you're oriented and connected. That's not luck. That's information superiority translating to survival advantage. 7 skills. Total investment under $250 and maybe 80 hours of your time. That's 1 month of weekends. But here's what they don't tell you about skills versus supplies. The dark truth. Skills have limits. Every strategy has vulnerabilities. Skills are better than stockpiles, but they're not magic. Let me tell you what nobody mentions in the skill-building hype. Skills require practice to maintain. Learning a skill once doesn't mean you've mastered it. Suturing a practice pad in your living room is different from suturing a bleeding human under stress in the dark. You'll make mistakes under pressure. The first real wound you close won't be perfect. That's reality. Skills need minimum tools. You can't suture without needles and thread. You can't use a radio without power source. You can't navigate without a compass and maps. The skills multiply the value of basic equipment, but they don't eliminate the need for equipment entirely. Lose your tools and your skills become theoretical knowledge instead of practical capability. Skills can't solve everything. You can't suture an arterial bleed with basic technique. You can't purify radioactive water with bleach. You can't navigate through active combat zones without getting shot. Some problems require resources or safety conditions you won't have. The time problem is real. Medical skills and engineering knowledge take years to master. What you're getting from 80 hours of practice is basic competency, not expertise. You're good enough to handle common scenarios. You're not good enough to handle complex emergencies that would challenge professionals. The violence problem nobody discusses. Skills make you valuable. Valuable people become targets for forced recruitment. Armed groups will want your medical skills, your mechanical skills, your knowledge. You might not get a choice about who you work for. Other survivors might kill you to prevent you from helping their enemies. Value creates danger. Skills won't make you invincible. A skilled person can still die from bad luck, random violence, disease, or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Skills improve your odds versus the supply-dependent masses. They don't guarantee survival. Better odds, not certainty. Skills aren't perfect, but they're renewable, invisible, and multiplicative. Supplies are finite, visible, and deplete. Your choice. The choice. Learn now or panic by later. Right now, before anything happens, you have a decision to make. You can spend the next month learning 7 skills for under $250 total investment, or you can wait until World War III starts and max out your credit cards buying supplies that run out in 6 months. Here are your immediate action steps if you choose skills. Google Suture Practice Kit and buy it today. $30, 4 hours of practice this weekend. You'll know how to close wounds. Download Khan Academy or buy a slide rule and math manual tonight. $15 are free. 10 hours over the next 2 weeks. You'll regain calculation competency. Find your local bike co-op this weekend. Volunteer time for free training. Buy a $40 toolkit. 8 hours of practice. You'll maintain mechanical systems. Order fermentation weights and water treatment supplies on Amazon. $35 combined. 1 weekend of learning. You'll produce food and clean water. Study for your ham technician license this week. $65 for materials and radio. 15 hours of study. Buy a compass and topographic maps of your area. 6 hours of navigation practice. You'll have communication and orientation capability. Total investment, under $250. Total time, under 80 hours. That's 1 month of weekends. Here's the timing advantage. These skills cost almost nothing to learn right now. Try learning to suture while under fire. Try studying radio theory when the power's out and you're starving. Try practicing navigation when armed groups control the roads. Skills are cheap now, impossible later. 99% of people will scroll past this and do nothing. They'll panic buy when WW3 starts. They'll fight over depleting stockpiles. They'll run out in months and have nothing. 1% will open new tabs right now and start learning. They'll own knowledge nobody can steal and everyone will need. You can be the person who knows. Or you can be the person who wishes they'd learned. 7 skills, infinite advantage. Learn them while they're cheap. Class dismissed.